Unit Planning, Introduction to Using Understanding by Design as Your Planning. All right, so let's take a look at this a little bit. How long is a unit? As we talked about before, it can be a lesson 2 weeks, 6 weeks. It kind of, depends on everything that you're doing. So you can continue in whichever way that you'd like as far as time, but you have some options. So why plan a unit? Remember, we talked about this before. It forces you to make those difficult decisions, those hard things, about what is important. And it keeps you at pace so that you really reach your end goal, That's so important because we think that we're going to reach our end goal, but we don't, because if we don't plan, we often don't get there. And it also, of course, provides an opportunity to stimulate students' interest, because we thought about things ahead of time and what this all needs and what we need in order to facilitate the learning. So let's take a look at this. Once again, the 3 types of unit: goal-based, unit-based, and project-based. So now we're going to hopefully answer these questions right now as we reflect on using UBD. How do I design? How do I design for deep understanding? What authentic tasks could students do? What is the enduring knowledge they should have? And what are essential questions? We're going to begin to look through this. But this presentation, and also the first go at this, is not the last. So understanding by design, as you know right now, is about backwards design, deep understanding, developing authentic tasks as much as possible. What is the real use of this knowledge? What is the enduring knowledge, and what are the essential questions? And as you know and have seen, there are 3 stages. And in those 3 stages, the first thing we're going to ask ourselves is, what is enduring? What is at the heart of the discipline? What needs to be uncovered? And potentially, what is engaging to students? So you can study about mountains, you can name mountains, you can look at the geology and all that kind of thing, but it's really different than when you get to the summit. So, Stage 1. This is what we're going to look at right now. And we're going to look at the template. What should students know, understand, and be able to do? So you want to think about what is worth being familiar with, what are the standards and goals, how should they do things, what are the skills, and what does it mean to endure and understand, and the essential questions. Have I said all that enough? I hope it's drilling into your head. So, I would not actually start with the goals, although you may choose to, or the standards. I would start with Stage 1 with the transfer. What will students be able to independently use their learning to? What? After they finish learning what they learn with you. And I would first go with my gut prior to looking at standards. I would look at standards, you may revise, but first try to think, what will they be able to do when I teach them this? Can they view the world in a new way? Can they look outside and walk outside their door and analyze the world around them differently? Will they read the news in a new way by seeing the complexity of perspectives and not just listening to it anymore? Will they look at the research findings of some bit of science of stem cells and think about the different perspectives and what it means, and also what the future could hold? What will they be able to do at the end of their learning? How they can use that? And then what will they understand? And what was their essential questions? And acquisition through all of this. So let's break this down a little bit. Establish goals. The first thing, I would say the second thing, some would say the first thing that you should look at is the standards. Again, I personally would look at the second thing. I would look at the first thing as transfer. So to look at the standards, you can go over to here to the standards viewing. You can view the standards, you can search the standards. So to search them, you can come over here, choose a grade, choose a subject, and stick a grade. But in your case, you might want to just choose a subject and just begin, searching in that, what you want. And then you can look over those standards, and the information is going to populate for you, and you can look at what they have. We talk about the transfer. As noted, this is probably where I would begin. How would they use it? And I spoke about that before. Next, understandings. What will the students be able to understand? And this is cognitive, right? It's mental. What will they should be able to understand at the end of your unit? What are the essential questions? This is the part about meaning. Now, I'm going to go over this very briefly, but there are other resources there for you about essential questions. Essential questions should be provocative, multi-layered, complex, and get to the heart of curriculum. So some examples. Must a story have a moral? Not what's the moral of the story. Who is a friend? Notice that it crosses more than one content area. Not are frog and toad true friends. How does an organism's structure enable it to survive in its environment? Not what are the survival features of a reptile. So it's taking these things to a different level. You could also ask the inverse of that to make a question more provocative. And that would be, instead of how does an organization's organism structure enable it to survive, what is not necessary for survival and of a organism? And that might lead one to think about, okay, how could life evolve? All right, so there are different ways of asking these things. And are linear relationships necessary? And to what extent? So these are essential questions, but please go on and look a little bit more. Acquisition. Students will know and students will be skilled at. Students will know is probably the most typical aspect that people look at. What are they going to know? Okay. And what are they going to be skilled at? And there's what kind of skills will they gain in the process? Will they gain rating skills? Will it be perspective writing? Will it be persuasion? And learning how to persuade? Would it be analysis, critical thinking? If they become skilled at taking, standardized tests, that's all fine and good. It can happen, but let me tell you, life is more than standardized tests. So once again, we talked about this before. We will be aligning to the standards, and of course you have a place for that. We will have different assessments. We're not going to get into that right now. And in the end, we will look at the whole course, your unit, and the daily plans. We're not at the daily yet. So remember, you need to look at this first part, desired results of your UBD template. Think about it and have a first go at it. Best of luck and can't wait to see what you got.